reaction to the news out of China this morning. Stocks and commodities are reacting to the news that Saudi Arabia and Bahrain are cutting ties with Iran. Joining us now in a Fox Business exclusive, retired United States Marine Corps General and former head of U.S. Central Command, General Anthony Zinni. Welcome to you, sir. It's an honor to have you this morning, but we'd first love to get your reaction to this news.
Well, good morning, Sandra. I think the news is really concerning. If this were to escalate in any major way, we have the potential for a hot war between Iran and Saudi Arabia, which could close the Gulf. Obviously, the access to energy, freedom of navigation, the implications for us and all that, much like the old Iran-Iraq war in the 80s, could be, I think, deeply concerning for those that worry about the economy and stability in the region. Also, this will distract from the war on ISIS. The Saudis are deeply concerned about what's going on in Yemen. The Houthis and the opposition are supported by Iran. They will have internal problems because their eastern provinces and Bahrain and other places have major Shia populations that are demonstrating now, and obviously that unrest could cause internal problems. So for those reasons, a potential hot war, the distraction from ISIS, the internal problems that our allies in the region could have, this thing has to be walked back very carefully.
I mean, General, the criticism of this administration is that they haven't had a plan, that the president has not laid forward a specific plan to defeat ISIS. Based on what you know...
I think that's correct. I think the rhetoric talks about defeat, but the action on the grounds looks more like a strategy of containment and slow attrition. And that's a high-risk strategy because it allows ISIS to continue to radicalize, to recruit, to gain more terrain, to obviously conduct attacks in Europe and elsewhere. If we really were about defeat, we would mobilize NATO, our NATO allies and us. We've been attacked. Article 5 would be invoked, and we would take stronger action, even to the commitment of ground forces. We would put pressure and give support to this new coalition that the Saudis are putting together for them to get more involved. And I think with our participation and our support, they would. And this would match what's going on in Iraq now, where the Iraqi military, along with the Kurds, are finally beginning to show some strength. But there's a long way to go in that area. But in my mind, we could crush them in a short period if we made the commitment to defeat.
General,
the actions
what would it
on the
take?
ground don't match the rhetoric out of the White House.
I'm sorry to interrupt you, but what would it take as far
Sure.
as ground forces are concerned, U.S. ground forces? What kind of numbers are you talking about that it would take to implement that kind of action?
Well, I don't think it takes many on our part. Let's say a couple of brigades. I would want NATO participation. You know, Paris has been attacked. Belgium has problems. The UK is concerned. Obviously, we've had attacks in Canada in the past. Of course, San Bernardino and the potential here. So this is not just our fight. And I think if we were to commit, at least participate on the ground, provide support. You see the Iraqis and the Kurds beginning to stand up. The Kurds need more support, more weapons, better weapons, higher capacity weapons. And I think the pressure on this newly formed coalition of Arab forces, with our support, if they saw us committed on the ground, this could be a three-pronged attack on ISIS. Go back to the first Gulf War, Desert Storm. We followed the PAL doctrine, overwhelming force. By the time we launched the attack, it only took hours to defeat Saddam's army. It would take a short period of time to give ISIS a major defeat.
Wow.
You might not destroy them all throughout their ability to hit any place in the world, but you would destroy their core, their base, a significant number of their forces, and I think discourage many recruits from wanting to join a loser.
General, another big conversation as we work our way into an election year here is defense spending. What changes should we see made there in order to strengthen our military? I mean, we're still facing an $18 trillion deficit in this country. What do we do as far as military spending?
Well, I think, first of all, you need a strategy, which we don't have, which prioritizes where our interests are in the world, where the threats are, where our vital national interests lie, what kind of military we need. We obviously can't be all things to all people. We can't be the policeman of the world. So we have to pick and choose, and that ought to drive the kind of military we fund. We can't continue to be globally responsible for everything that goes on in the world. I think another part of this, though, besides military spending, is forming viable coalitions. Look, NATO needs to be restructured. You know, its mission needs to be cleaned up and clarified. Its commitment, you know, we've increased it from 16 to 28 countries, but the military capacity hasn't increased. So better burden sharing, better cooperation, better support of other militaries of our allies are part and parcel of this, too. We're reducing our military far below what our strategy requires, but we can do this in a smart way by building these partnerships and by committing to a military that's very carefully designed to meet the needs where our interests lie and where the threats lie.
General, we've got to leave it there, but I won't ask you to get too political or tell us your candidate, but are the presidential candidates having the right conversation? Are you hearing the right debate take place as far as the conversation to combat and defeat ISIS?
The short answer is no. I have not heard anyone really talk about an effective, viable strategy as yet. If you want to defeat ISIS, it takes a strong commitment. I haven't heard that at all, and one that's reasonable, and one that understands how we build coalitions and alliances. And you know, and I would just also say part of the discussion ought to be: do these candidates know what it means to be commander-in-chief? I haven't seen that discussion, and I have my doubts across the board on both sides of the aisle.
Noted. General Anthony Zinni, thank you for joining us this morning. Honor to have you.
Thank you, Sandra.
All right.